Oh man, welcome to Breaking the News Plus on this Wednesday night. So you ever put your house up for sale and then it sits there for 10 months and you're like, never mind? That's basically what the Twins organization did today. After 10 months of being for sale, the Pohlad family says, never mind. To talk this out in the way that only he can, Jim Souhan, longtime sports columnist with the Star Tribune. Jim, what gives? Why'd they do this?
I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I think the simple explanation is probably the correct explanation. I think they thought they would get $1.7 to $2 billion, and I'm not sure the market developed the way they thought it would. We kept hearing at Star Tribune behind the scenes that they had buyers they felt good about, that they thought they would get their price, and all of a sudden this happens. So obviously we're not getting their price. It's really awkward for them to take ownership back of the team, obviously. And the worst part about it is it's not like they're coming back and saying, okay, now we're going to spend more money. We realize the error of our ways. Now we're going to be more aggressive in spending. I'll also, let me say the unpopular thing I'm going to say up front and get it out of the way. It's also very possible that worse owners than the Pohlads could have taken over the Twins. The Pohlads have basically one major flaw. They don't spend a ton of money in free agency. Other than that, ever since early 2000s, they've been stable owners. And stability doesn't really win you a lot of friends, I guess, in this market. But they are stable. They're not going to move the franchise. They don't complain about, they don't complain about their stadium deal. They don't make threats anymore. So it could be worse. It could have been worse. Now we go back to the same problem the Pohlads have had ever since the early 90s, which is they just don't want to compete with the coastal teams in terms of payroll size.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, let's pick it up with the fans, because obviously you have ownership, but the people of Minnesota and the people that have followed this baseball team, when news came 10 months ago, the Pohlads were going to cut bait, it was somewhat celebrated because the fans felt, as you rightly point out, the Pohlads weren't willing to spend to win. So now they had some hope, and that hope comes back to, actually, no, mommy and daddy are going to stay married. We're staying here. We're staying put. We're holding down the fort. We're going to see if we can give this a go again. But we're not promising any big changes to our marriage.
Yeah, and it sounds like Joe Pohlad is still going to run it. And it's been interesting to listen to Joe talk ever since he became the chairman, because he talks a lot about wanting to win and how desperately he wants to win, how much he wants to bring a championship to the Twin Cities. But those have been hopes, not actionable emotions. He hasn't really done anything differently. He hasn't upped the payroll. In fact, let's face it, I really felt like the peak of this team's popularity in recent years came when they won the playoff series in 2023 at a competitive series with a very good Astros team. And he looked at it and he said, man, maybe one more free agent. Maybe you replace Sonny Gray with another good pitcher. Maybe you'll get one more hitter and this team could really do something special. And each of the last two summers, they have collapsed midsummer. Last year it was August. This year it was July. And each time you could look at it and say, there's talent on this team. It's a good farm system. There are some star players having good years. They just look like they're a little short. They look like they're one arm or one bat, or two arms and one bat, whatever. They look like they're one or two players short, and this ownership did not enable the front office to go out and get those players. I also say this. I think this needs to be said. Joe Pohlad, in an interview with the Star Tribune today, said, hey, we didn't ask for them to sell off players at the trade deadline. I think that's technically true. I don't think the Pohlads called Derek Falvey and said, get rid of 10 or 11 players right now. But where it doesn't ring true is that when you are Derek Falvey, Jeremy Zoll, and you are running a franchise that doesn't spend a lot of money, then you have to worry more about constantly seeking value instead of constantly doing what's best to win right now. When you trade your all-star closer, who's having a fantastic year, who's young, who's affordable, and under contract for a few more years. When you trade him for prospects, what you're saying is you got to trade these people when they're at peak value. You can't wait for them to get hurt. Can't wait for them to be in a bad year. Well, the reason you're doing that is because you can't go into free agency and just go get another player.
I just can't imagine a fan then today, Jim, going out and seeking the T-shirt that says Minnesota Twins constantly seeking value.
Exactly, and that's the problem. And it's frustrating. I understand, I've talked to enough people in ownership with the Twins and around the Twin Cities and in other small markets and in management to understand their plight when you're looking at the bottom line and trying not to lose money. But that's not why you own a sports team. You don't own a sports team to not lose money. You own a sports team to try to win. And I just think the Pohlads have been very stubborn about. I don't think the Pohlads want to bow to public sentiment, but when you own a public team and a publicly financed stadium, you probably should listen to the public once in a while.
Right. I mean, geez, like, stop being Ebenezer Scrooge here. Like, you asked for help with Target Field, we gave it. The fans have showed up, and, albeit not this season, because they're still bitter about what happened after the 2023 season, and for some of them, rightfully so. How long do you have to wait?
Baseball. I love baseball. I love Target Field. I love being around the game, but I'm kind of on the same page as the fans. It's like I'm tired of watching this team collapse. I'm tired of watching this team play for, try to build prospects so they can be good maybe 3 or 5 years ago. Here's the other thing. I was covering the Twins in the early 90s, and they were the model franchise in baseball, playing in the Metrodome they started sliding. Andy McPhail leaves town because he knows that the Pohlads are not going to compete with the Yankees and the Dodgers on payroll. They were terrible for 8 straight years. Early, 2010, they come into Target Field. They go to the playoffs in 2010. I think anyone who's rational looked at the team and the farm system, said they don't have enough pitching. It's not going to be pretty here. And they've been, except for a couple of little blips, they were pretty much bad from 2011 until they rebounded in 2019. Trading away good players and pretending you're going to be able to replace them easily and quickly is, I think, a little foolish.
Yeah, at some point you have to really question, are the Pohlads in this to have an asset saying they own a baseball team, or do they want to win? And evidence as of late doesn't show the latter to the fans.
Also, they are not doing well in terms of comparison in this market. The Wilfs have become exemplary owners. They spend money. Now, different financial systems, that has to be said. Baseball has a terrible setup. Baseball has the opposite setup of the NFL, which set itself up so Green Bay could compete for championships with New York and Los Angeles. NFL and the NBA have model systems. Baseball has the opposite. Baseball has a system that does punish mid-market and smaller teams. But again, if you're going to own a team in this sport, if you want to continue being owning a team in this sport, then you should care about winning. And there's not much evidence that the Pohlads care about winning enough to spend money on it.
Right, and I get what you're saying, but I don't, the system within you're operating to the Pohlads, to the Twins. You understand the rules of Major League Baseball, whether you like them or not. That's the league you're playing in. And other teams seem to understand in order to win, you have to pay players. You have to go get players. You have to be aggressive, strike when it's hot. And they just don't do that. Is there any modicum of positivity that comes out of this news today for the Twins, maybe not for the remainder of this season, but for next season? They said they want to win in the statement they gave out today. They said that this was the best possible outcome to one of your colleagues, which I can't quite figure out, but okay.
Yeah, that really doesn't make much sense. You don't put the team up for sale and then come back and say, oh, we just had a change of heart after they've been bashed by the public and the media. It really makes no sense, other than they couldn't come up with a buyer they trusted or wanted to sell to. Again, there's one positive and there's one potential positive. The one positive is the Pohlads are not going to try to move the franchise. The Pohlads have been stable owners. The other possible positive is if they realize that their family name is going to continue to get dragged through the mud if they don't spend more, if they don't appear to be more aggressive. And listen, I don't think any realistic fans, if there's such a thing, expect them to spend as much as the Dodgers, the Yankees. It's kind of impossible for them to do that without losing $50 million a year by their standards, by their measures. I just think that the last couple of years, if you had one key free agent, one big bat in the middle of the lineup, maybe one arm, I think it would have made a difference. I would just like to see them give that a shot, because when they won the playoff game series in 2023, it was after they had invested heavily in Carlos Correa. and he made a difference. They would not have, I don't think they would have won the playoff series without Carlos Correa. You can make an immediate impact. You have to have a good farm system. You have to do all the other things right, but adding one key player to what is a pretty good baseball organization otherwise can make all the difference. I just think it's time for them to do that.
I think there was a contributing columnist to your paper wrote a piece basically to the effect of, don't come to us, the taxpayer, to help you if we don't see you give us some return on our investment. Is that a fair argument?
That's the populist argument.
Okay.
What I always hear fans say is, the Twins promised that if they got the stadium, that they would, spend more. And you cannot find. I covered the proceedings. I never saw any Twins official ever say that. What they said was having a ballpark would enable them to keep more of the players they would like to keep, and they've done that. They signed Pablo Lopez to a long-term deal. They signed Correa to 2 large contracts. They signed Duran to a contract. I'm blanking on Buxton. They signed Buxton to a long-term deal. So they've done that. Their argument was having a ballpark allows you to keep the Joe Mauers and the Byron Buxtons, people like that. They've done that. It's not that they haven't met something that people think they once said. It's just that we'd all like to see them make a more concerted effort to win.
Do you think that, my last question, you had alluded to, the Pohlads getting their names dragged through the mud, especially over the course of the last 2 years, 2.5 years. Do you think they care?
I think if I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, what I'll say is I think their situation is very complicated. When Carl Pohlad bought the team, he was one rich owner, and really probably the best model you have for sports ownership in America these days is one supremely rich person who surrounds himself or herself with good people and hires good people to run the sport and then kind of stays up. I mean, Ziggy Wilf has gone from being somebody who didn't look like he knew what he was doing his first few years as the Vikings owner to being the ideal owner. He provides the money. He runs a very stable, intelligent organization. He trusts the people he puts in charge, and he never says anything stupid. He's perfect. That would be great if the Twins could do that. What we'll never know is what somebody like Ziggy Wilf would do if they worked in baseball, where even if you spend more money than previous owners of your team, you're still never going to spend as much as the Yankees and the Dodgers and maybe even Houston. And then you have the Pohlads. You have Joe. Joe's not a billionaire. He's part of a billionaire family. He's got other people in the family who have a stake in the Twins. I think it's a very complicated decision-making process these days. It would be much better if they had, a Ziggy Wilf who just was the rich person who could spend the money himself, or whether it's a male or female owner, and operate that way. This is way too complex. It's a part of a family business. Everybody's got their hand in it. A lot of the people who have their hand in it don't want to lose money on an operating basis. It's really a kind of a bad setup for sports ownership right now.
Yeah, family businesses can be tough. Well, the family is staying back together. The fans and the Twins reunited. We don't know if it feels so good, but we thank you, Jim Souhan, for being on Breaking the News Plus to make sense of it.
I tried. Thanks, Jana.
That's all we ask of you. That's all for Breaking the News Plus on this Wednesday night. Take care.